Welcome again to A Thought for the Day. These days after Easter, when no doubt you're getting down to a different routine. Welcome to Thought for the Day from the New Forest, the Avon Valley, Fordingbridge team of churches. Wherever you're looking from, join us and just come with us on a short journey. I want to invite you to come on a walk. If you're the sort of person who likes a map in front of you, you need Luke chapter 24. And we just come back from a walk up beside the lake in the forest, and it's absolutely beautiful. The footpath has just been reinstated, and people are out and about as it's fine today. So as we walked, one couple who we know fairly well, we could virtually hear galloping up behind us. They walk a lot faster than we do. So they joined us for a short time, and then we were meeting various people with dogs, children, little tricycles and so on. It was a really good time to be out just before lunch on a weekday like this. So I invite you to join me on a walk. We're with Luke. Luke is quite an amazing writer as far as the New Testament's concerned. If you added together Acts of the Apostles as well as the Gospel, you'll find that Luke writes about a quarter of the New Testament. In his writings, he takes us to 114 different places. He deals with about 25 political or national events, and he actually addresses 117 people by name. Quite an amazing man, a real intellectual, as well as being a doctor, and obviously a disciple, a follower of Jesus. And that's where he invites us to go at the end of his gospel in chapter 24. We're still in the first day of the week, the resurrection day, the first Sunday. A lot's been going on. The women had been to the tomb. Others had been sent off to Galilee to meet Jesus there. He'd met people in Jerusalem itself. And I just think that these two people going back to their home village of Emmaus probably wanted to get away from the city. It's interesting that in these days when lockdown is gradually being lifted, that's one thing that people long to do, get away from the bricks and mortar out into the country. And we're told that green is the best colour to get to. It does us good to be in the green. Now I think these two people, known to us as Cleopas and a friend, I was talking to somebody on the phone this morning really. Cleopas, we don't get the other name, just says Cleopas and a friend. So some people have said perhaps it was his wife, or maybe just somebody else from the village. But nevertheless, they decided that the city was enough. Enough had been going on in Jerusalem to amaze them, to upset them, to disillusion them. And they were walking home discussing with each other. The actual phraseology really means a lively discussion, disagreement. Why couldn't it have been so-and-so? Why did so-and-so have to happen? Why did somebody say that? People were anxious, and these two were very anxious, as their expectations had been high, and their expectations had been dashed. Comes out in the discussion, doesn't it? I wonder how you feel, or you would feel, if you were having a private chinwag with somebody as you walked, and somebody else joins you and asks, what are you talking about? Being British, we'd probably resent it. But these two, Eastern hospitality being what it is, don't seem to be upset about it. This unknown stranger joins them and walks with them, having asked that pertinent question, what are you talking about? What are you discussing? And they simply say, well, don't you know? Jesus being killed in the city, all our hopes dashed, all the things he talked about. So Jesus' second question, after what are you talking about, is what things? In other words, he wanted to know the foundation to their conversation. What was it really about? And so we have this wonderful account where they talked, they discussed with animated words on the road with Jesus as the third person. I think probably in England we'd say three's a crowd, wouldn't we? We're happy with a couple. And maybe when you walk out in the forest, you're happy just to have a companion. Well, here there were three of them. Jesus joined them, but they didn't recognize him. It's interesting to ask the question, why didn't they recognize him? Jesus obviously had the ability to disguise himself, if you like, but we don't really understand that these two were part of the inner 12. Well, in fact, they certainly weren't. And if you go beyond the inner 12 of disciples, you reach 70. Well, they could have been among the 70. I rather like to feel they were more on the fringe. They were looking in from a distance, wondering what was happening and why it was happening. And maybe we know people who are perhaps on the fringe of the church. Maybe you'd say you are yourself. Good fun to watch the Thought for the Days, but actually to come along to church and be involved or part of a crowd is not you, at least not at the moment, maybe in the future. And maybe you prefer to be alone or just with one or two people. But there it is, we are called to converse with each other and to reason together. They thought that Jesus was a mighty prophet, and really their description doesn't go any further than that he was a mighty prophet and we had great hopes. Look around us at the Roman occupation and you can see we could well do without it. If anyone arises to clear out the Romans, that's a good thing. And we had hoped. We had our hopes. And Jesus counters this with foolish men, or rather foolish people, slow to believe what the prophets have spoken. So they're obviously Jewish and steeped in the prophets, but they had read them. They may not have understood them, but they had the background. And Jesus pretty well reprimands them for not believing what the prophets have spoken. And so we have, albeit unrecorded, one of the best sermons there ever has been. Because it says that starting with Moses and all the prophets, he unloaded the Old Testament. He explained it, that the Messiah would fulfill the Old Testament prophecies. And it would do us good from time to time to go back into the Old Testament and discover how the life and ministry, the death and resurrection of Jesus is all there in the Old Testament, foretold for us and fulfilled in the New. So it was a wonderful sermon, a wonderful chat as they went along. And when they completed those 7 miles, Jerusalem to Emmaus, 3 hours more, I don't know, he looked as if he was going further, this unknown man. And being good Jewish hospitality, they invited him in. Stay with us. It's getting late. And you're welcome to stay for a meal. And he sat down with them. I don't know if you saw this wonderful leaflet that came through from the parish just before Easter. We had a copy sent to us. And it's got a wonderful picture of Jesus sitting with them. Jesus has got no shoes on, whereas they have. But it's a good read. If you can get hold of a copy, if you haven't had one already, I guess they're in the churches. Have a word with somebody who goes to your local church, see if you can get hold of a copy. It's in a nutshell what they were saying, hearing, and talking about. But now stay with us because it's getting late. And as they sat down, and as they broke bread together, let's just park that for a minute and recognise how important it is, this word hospitality. It's there in the Gospels, it's there in the writing of Peter and of Paul, that part of the marks of a Christian and a Christian home is hospitality. Come in for a cuppa. Why not come back for a cup of tea? Like to join me in a piece of cake? Whether it's at home or dropping into a cafe or somewhere else where you could have hospitality together. I think as we come out of COVID and out of the restrictions of these last months, we need to revalue talking together, meeting together, sharing together, discussing together, and renewing friendships. It's been okay on the phone and by Zoom, but nothing like face to face. So if you can, let's do it. And if it can be food, it's a jolly good way into a conversation. And we found time and time again that having people in or going out to people, it's food and hospitality is just plain relaxing. And it's as Jesus took bread, and I still wonder why it was him. He wasn't the head of the house, but maybe it was their hospitality to say, would you like to break bread for us? Would you like to say grace for us? It was in that taking of the bread and breaking it that perhaps they saw the marks in his hands or wrists. And having recognized him, he departed out of their sight. And they kicked themselves under the table. Shouldn't we have known? Shouldn't we have recognized? He was the one we were talking about. Jesus wasn't just the prophet or the carpenter. He was the Christ. He was the Son of God. He was our Messiah. Let's go back and share that with the others. And of course, as they hastened back the 7 miles to Jerusalem, everybody there had already either met with Jesus or was talking about him. There was a new hope, a resurgence of hope. All their old hopes had been dashed because he died. Now they were in new hope. And he was meeting with them, breaking of bread. It just says here, have you anything to eat? And he broke bread before them up in that upper room. And he said, I'm going ahead of you to Galilee. And there they had another meal beside the lake. So I wonder what we can learn out of a story like this. First thing is to recognize that it's there, and it's a very important chapter in our New Testaments. Because Jesus, when he was allowed to, opened their minds to understand the scriptures. I think a lot of us have come through life knowing a bit about the Bible, or having some pretty firm ideas about our religion, our faith, our worship, how things should be done. And sometimes we get fixed ideas. And certainly those two had fixed ideas how things should have worked out, but they didn't. And Jesus opened their minds to understand the scriptures. It speaks to me about having quiet times with God. When we open the scriptures, like an easy to read chapter such as this, and say, well, Lord, what are you saying to me out of this? And he opens our minds to understand what we're reading in such a way that we can apply what we're understanding and reading to our daily lives. He doesn't leave us in limbo. He takes the scriptures, which apparently are so old, and yet has a message for us today. Their application for how we are living now is boundless if we just let him open our minds to understand the scriptures. Hopefully in an area of hospitality. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for Luke and his clear writing. Help us to understand clearly what's being said, and above all to take the words of Jesus, understand them and apply them to our own lives, the situation in which we are now, and the potential for hospitality in the future, wherever we may be finding ourselves. May the Lord bless us and keep us. May his light shine upon us and be gracious to us today and always. Amen. See you again soon. Keep on watching each day, 10 o'clock, Thought for the Day. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
is the victory.